The crystal chandeliers in Marcus's new penthouse caught the afternoon light, scattering rainbows across walls lined with his framed degrees. I stood in the doorway of his study, delivery uniform still on, holding the catering boxes I'd brought from my second job. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawled below us like a promise I'd never been allowed to touch. "Sarah, the food girl is here," Marcus called out, his voice dripping with that particular brand of condescension he'd perfected over the years. He appeared in the hallway, scotch in hand, his designer suit probably worth more than I made in 3 months. "Everyone, come meet my sister, the one I told you about." My stomach tightened. I knew that tone. I'd heard it my entire life, at family dinners, at holidays, whispered behind half-closed doors. The tone that said I was less than, always less than. The party guests filed in, Marcus's colleagues and our extended family, all dressed in their finest. Mom appeared, her smile brittle and performative. According to YouTube analytics, 99% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Followed by Dad, who couldn't quite meet my eyes, Aunt Linda, Uncle Robert, my cousins. They all gathered like spectators at a show they'd paid to see. "Here she is," Marcus announced, gesturing toward me with his glass. "My dropout sister, still delivering food for a living, I see. Tell everyone, Sarah. Did you finally get that GED, or are we still working on that?" The room rippled with uncomfortable laughter. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, but I kept my face neutral. I'd learned that much at least. Never let them see the wound. "I'm working," I said quietly, setting the boxes down on the mahogany table. "Just doing my job." "Working?" Marcus scoffed. He turned to his boss, a silver-haired man in an immaculate suit. "Mr. Peterson, this is what happens when you quit school at 17. You end up in a uniform, bringing food to people who actually made something of themselves." "Marcus," Mom said softly, but there was no real rebuke in her voice. There never was. She'd made her choice years ago about which child to believe, which child to support. "What?" Marcus spread his hands innocently. "I'm just being honest. Sarah made her choices, decided education wasn't for her, decided to embarrass this family instead of—" "I didn't decide anything," I interrupted, my voice still calm, still measured. "You know that's not what happened." The room went quiet. Marcus's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Oh, here we go again," he said, his voice rising. "The victim story. Tell me, sis, when are you going to take responsibility for your own failures? When are you going to stop blaming everyone else for the fact that you're a nobody?" I stood there. Boxes delivered, my job technically done. I could leave. I should leave. But something in me, some small spark of the girl I used to be before Marcus destroyed everything, made me speak. "I'm not blaming anyone," I said. "I'm just saying—" "You're saying what?" Marcus stepped closer, and I could smell the scotch on his breath. "That it's someone else's fault you're 28 years old and delivering sandwiches? That it's my fault you never finished school? That it's Mom and Dad's fault you have nothing, are nothing?" "Marcus, that's enough," Dad said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. He'd always been uncertain when it came to choosing between his children. "No, Dad, it's not enough. I'm tired of tiptoeing around Sarah's feelings. I'm tired of pretending her life isn't a complete disaster of her own making." Marcus turned back to me, his face flushed now, the alcohol and the audience emboldening him. "You know what your problem is? You're lazy. You were always lazy. Too lazy to study, too lazy to try, too lazy to make anything of yourself, and now you're too lazy to even accept responsibility for it." The guests shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others watched with barely concealed fascination, the way people watch accidents unfold. "I worked 3 jobs to pay for college," I said quietly. "I was accepted to state. I had a scholarship." "And you threw it all away," Marcus shouted. "You threw it away because you couldn't handle the pressure, couldn't handle being average instead of special. Face it, Sarah, you're uneducated because you chose to be. You're a failure because that's all you were ever going to be." Aunt Linda made a small sound of approval. I saw her nod, saw the satisfaction in her eyes. She'd never liked me, not since I was a child. "Too mouthy," she'd always said. "Too stubborn, not sweet like Marcus." "Is that what you all think?" I asked, looking around the room. "That I chose this? That I wanted to drop out? wanted to work minimum wage jobs, wanted to watch my brother succeed while I just existed. Mom looked at her champagne glass. Dad studied his shoes. My cousins, once my playmates, once my friends, said nothing. "Come on, Sarah," Marcus said, his voice softening into something almost pitying, which was somehow worse. "Nobody forced you to leave school. Nobody made you choose the life you have. You did this, all of it. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can maybe, possibly, start to rebuild something from the wreckage." I felt something inside me crack, just a little. Not break. It had broken years ago when Marcus had first lied, when he'd first stolen what was mine and claimed it as his. But crack, splinter, send hairline fractures through the armor I'd built around my heart. "I should go," I said, turning toward the door. "Yes, you should," Aunt Linda said sharply, "before you embarrass yourself further. Honestly, Sarah, showing up here in that uniform, tracking your failure through Marcus's beautiful home, I was invited." The words burst out before I could stop them. I was hired to cater his party. I didn't just show up. "Oh, that's right," Marcus said, snapping his fingers in mock realization. "I forgot I ordered from your little company. See, everyone? I'm even supporting my sister's business. Well, not her business. She just delivers for them, but still, family helping family, right?" The laughter was louder this time, more comfortable. They'd found their rhythm now, the familiar pattern of mockery that had defined every family gathering for the last decade. I walked to the door, my delivery bag clutched to my chest like a shield. "Sarah," Mom called after me, her voice uncertain. "Don't be dramatic. Marcus is just teasing. You know how siblings are." I paused at the threshold, looking back at her, at all of them, at the family that had chosen to believe Marcus's lies about what happened that summer before college, at the people who had stood by while he took credit for my work, my ideas, my research. The same research that had earned him a full scholarship, a fast-track degree, and eventually this penthouse, this job, this life. "I know exactly how siblings are," I said. "I know exactly who my brother is." Marcus raised his glass in a mocking toast. "To Sarah, may she someday learn that education isn't everything, but it's definitely something." The laughter followed me into the elevator, down 40 floors, and out into the street where my beat-up Honda waited. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, not crying. I'd stopped crying years ago, just breathing, just existing, just wondering, for the 1,000th time, if maybe they were right. If maybe I had imagined it all, exaggerated it all, built a fantasy of injustice to excuse my own inadequacy. But no, I knew what had happened. I knew that the research proposal that won Marcus his scholarship had been mine, stolen from my laptop when he'd borrowed it to check his email. I knew that when I'd confronted him, he'd cried to Mom and Dad, said I was jealous, said I was trying to sabotage him out of spite. I knew that they'd believed him because Marcus was always the good one, the smart one, the successful one. And I was just Sarah, difficult Sarah, troubled Sarah, Sarah who asked too many questions and made too many waves. I knew that I'd left for college anyway, determined to prove them wrong, only to find that my scholarship had been mysteriously revoked, something about fraudulent materials in my application. I knew that when I'd tried to fight it, tried to prove the materials were mine, Marcus had already submitted them elsewhere, and suddenly I was the plagiarist, the liar, the fraud. I knew I'd come home in disgrace, worked 3 jobs to try to save for school again, watched Marcus graduate with honors using my words, my thoughts, my work. I knew all of this, but knowing didn't change anything. It never had. My phone buzzed. A text from the catering company. "Great job today. We have another delivery tomorrow if you're available." I was always available. I drove home to my studio apartment, the one with the leaky faucet and the neighbors who fought at 2 a.m. I changed out of my uniform, heated up leftover rice, and sat at my second-hand desk where my laptop waited. This was my secret, the thing no one in my family knew. Every night, after my jobs, after the deliveries, and the dishes, and the exhaustion, I worked. I wrote, I coded, I learned. When I'd lost my scholarship, when my family had turned their backs, when the doors to traditional education had slammed shut, I'd found other doors, online courses, community college classes paid for one at a time, YouTube tutorials at 3 a.m., Library books checked out and renewed until the pages fell apart. I taught myself to code, then web design, then UX, then business development. I'd built websites for friends, then friends of friends, then small businesses who couldn't afford big agencies. And then 2 years ago, I'd built something else, an app. A simple thing at first, a way for people to find local services, to connect small businesses with customers, to build community commerce. I'd called it Local Link, and I'd launched it in my neighborhood, just a few dozen users trading services and goods. It had grown, slowly at first, then faster. Other neighborhoods wanted in, other cities. I'd expanded carefully, methodically, refusing investor money, building it myself with the help of a few freelancers I'd met online. No office, no overhead, just clean code and good design, and a genuine desire to help people. The app had 100,000 users now. It generated enough revenue that I could quit my jobs, but I hadn't. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready for anyone to know. Wasn't ready for Marcus to find out and find some way to take this from me too. But recently, Local Inc. had caught the attention of someone big, a venture capital firm out of Silicon Valley. They wanted to meet, wanted to talk about expansion, about scaling, about turning my small success into something massive. The meeting was in 2 weeks. I hadn't decided if I'd go. I opened my laptop and checked the app's metrics. User engagement was up. Revenue was steady. Reviews were glowing. People loved what I'd built. They loved that it connected them to their neighbors, to local artisans, to the small businesses that made their community special. They loved it, and they had no idea it was built by a dropout, an uneducated failure, a woman in a delivery uniform who supposedly couldn't handle the pressure of real achievement. I worked until 2 a.m., improving features, responding to user feedback, planning the next update. Then I slept for 5 hours and woke to my alarm, ready to do it all again. This was my life. This had been my life for 10 years, work that no one saw, progress that no one acknowledged, success that no one believed possible. But it was mine, all mine, and no one could take it from me. The weeks passed in their familiar rhythm, deliveries and coding, catering gigs, and user feedback. My family's silence and my app's growth. I went to the meeting in Silicon Valley. I wore my one good suit, the one I'd bought at a thrift store and had tailored to fit. I sat across from three investors who'd built companies worth billions. And I said no. No? The lead investor, a woman named Catherine Chen, looked genuinely confused. Ms. Martinez, we're offering you $20 million for a 40% stake. That values your company at $50 million. That's... I know what it is, I said quietly, and I appreciate the offer. But Local Link works because it's focused on community, on local, on small-scale connection. The moment we take VC money, the moment we start chasing growth for growth's sake, we lose what makes it special. But think about what you could build, Catherine pressed. Think about the impact you could have at scale. Millions of users instead of thousands. Hundreds of communities instead of a handful. I am thinking about it, I said. And I'm thinking that maybe small is okay. Maybe slow growth is okay. Maybe building something sustainable is better than building something explosive. Catherine leaned back in her chair, studying me. You know, in 20 years of doing this, I've never had anyone turn down this much money, especially not someone who, from what I can see, could really use it. I smiled, the first real smile I'd felt in weeks. That's exactly why I'm saying no. Because the moment I need your money is the moment I lose control of what I've built. And I've already lost too much to ever let that happen again. We shook hands. They gave me their cards. If you change your mind, Catherine said, call us. That offer stands. And Sarah, whatever you're running from, whatever made you this careful, I hope you find a way past it. Because you're brilliant, and the world deserves to see what you can do. I flew home, coach, crammed in a middle seat, eating overpriced airport food. And I felt lighter than I had in years, because Catherine was wrong about one thing. I wasn't running from anything. I was running toward something, toward proof, toward vindication, toward the moment when I could finally show my family that their mockery had been built on lies. That moment came sooner than I expected. 3 months after the Silicon Valley meeting, I got a call from a reporter at TechCrunch. Local Link had hit 1 million users, and they wanted to do a feature story, not just about the app, but about me. about the mysterious founder who'd built a thriving business without any venture capital, without any formal tech education, without any of the usual Silicon Valley credentials. "We want to tell your story," the reporter said. "The real story, who you are, where you came from, how you built this." I thought about saying no, thought about staying in the shadows, staying safe, staying hidden from Marcus's inevitable attempt to claim credit or tear me down. But I was tired, so tired. Tired of hiding, tired of shame, tired of carrying the weight of my family's judgment like stones in my pockets. "Okay," I said, "let's tell the story." The interview took 3 hours. I told them everything: the stolen research, the lost scholarship, the years of night work and day jobs, the slow building of something real from the wreckage of something stolen. I showed them my early code, my design sketches, the emails and messages from users whose lives Localink had changed. I told them about my family, about Marcus, about the party where they'd called me uneducated, a failure, a cautionary tale. And then I told them about the app's revenue, $2.3 million annually, growing at 40% year over year. I told them about the acquisition offers I'd turned down, the investors I'd refused, the deliberate choice to build slowly and sustainably. "You could be worth $50 million right now," the reporter said, her eyes wide. "Maybe more. Why aren't you?" "Because this isn't about the money," I said. "It never was. It was about building something that couldn't be taken from me, something that was undeniably, completely mine." The article published on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, my phone was exploding. Messages from old college friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Emails from other news outlets wanting follow-up interviews. LinkedIn requests from hundreds of people in tech. And finally, inevitably, a text from Mom. "Sarah, what is this article? Did you really build this? Why didn't you tell us?" I didn't respond. Not yet. I waited. The story went viral. Not massive, not everyone in the country viral, but big enough. Big enough that it hit the front page of Hacker News. Big enough that it got picked up by the local news. Big enough that people who knew my family started asking questions. Big enough that Marcus saw it. He called me Thursday evening. I was in my apartment, having just finished a celebratory dinner of takeout Chinese, when his name flashed on my screen. I answered on the fourth ring. "Sarah." His voice was tight, controlled. "We need to talk." "Do we? This article, this app, is it real?" "Yes, Marcus, it's real." Silence. Then, "Why didn't you tell anyone? Why didn't you tell the family? Why do you think?" More silence. I could hear him breathing, could practically feel him calculating, trying to find an angle, a way to spin this. "Look," he said finally, "I know things have been complicated between us, but I'm your brother. I'm happy for your success. We're all happy for you." "Are you?" "Of course. Mom and Dad are thrilled. We all are. We wish you'd trusted us enough to share this, to let us be part of your journey." Something in his voice, that same smooth tone he'd used when he was lying to our parents about the research, when he was convincing them I was jealous, made my jaw tighten. "My journey," I repeated. "The journey where you called me uneducated, where you mocked me in front of your colleagues, where you told everyone I was a failure who chose to be lazy." "Sarah, come on." I was just joking. You know how I am. I tease. That's what siblings do." "No, Marcus. That's what bullies do. That's what thieves do when they need to justify what they've stolen." "Stolen? I never—" He cut himself off. "Look, we need to talk about this in person. Come to dinner this weekend. Bring someone from your company. Let's celebrate together, as a family." "I don't think so." "Sarah, please. Don't be difficult. Don't let one stupid party ruin our relationship." "One party?" I laughed, the sound bitter even to my own ears. "Marcus, that wasn't one party. That was 10 years of parties. 10 years of you taking credit for my work and then mocking me for having nothing. 10 years of our family believing your lies because it was easier than believing their golden boy could be cruel. I never lied about—" "You stole my research," I said, the words finally coming out. "You took my laptop, copied my files, and submitted my work as your own. You knew exactly what you were doing. And when I tried to tell the truth, you cried to Mom and Dad and made me out to be the jealous villain. You destroyed my scholarship, my reputation, my future, all so you could have yours. That's not, I didn't, Sarah, you're confused. That research was collaborative. We worked on it together. You even said, I have the files, Marcus. The original files, time-stamped, backed up, saved in 3 different places. I have my notes, my research, my drafts, all dated months before you suddenly had your scholarship-winning idea. The silence on the other end was absolute. You kept them? He finally whispered. I kept everything, every email, every draft, every piece of evidence that proves what you did. I've always had them. I didn't want to use them. I wanted to build something new instead, something you couldn't touch. Sarah, if you release those files, if you try to, I'm not going to release them, I said quietly. I don't need to, because it doesn't matter anymore. Your lies gave you a head start, sure, but look where we are now. Look what I built without the scholarship, without the family support, without any of the advantages you stole. I built something real, something that helps people, something that's actually mine. So what, you're just going to flaunt your success? Rub it in my face? No, Marcus, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to keep living my life, keep building my company, keep proving every single day that you were wrong about me. That's not revenge. That's just truth. I hung up before he could respond. The calls from my family started that night and didn't stop for days. Mom crying, saying she didn't know, she didn't understand. Why hadn't I told them, Dad gruff and uncomfortable, suggesting we all just move forward without dwelling on the past. Aunt Linda furious, accusing me of making up stories for publicity. My cousins curious, confused, some apologetic, some defensive. I responded to none of them. Not yet. Instead, I went to dinner with Catherine Chen, who'd flown out from Silicon Valley specifically to congratulate me on the TechCrunch piece. Still don't want our money? She asked over appetizers at a restaurant I couldn't have afforded to enter a year ago. Still don't, I confirmed. Good. You shouldn't want it. You're doing something rare, Sarah. You're building sustainably, ethically, with your users in mind instead of your investors. The world needs more of that. The world seems to prefer the explosive growth model. The world is wrong about a lot of things. Catherine set down her fork. I've been thinking about your story, about what you told that reporter, and I want to make you an offer that's not about money. I raised an eyebrow. I want to mentor you, she said. Not because I think you need fixing. You clearly don't. But because you've built something remarkable without any of the traditional support systems. And I think you could benefit from someone in your corner, someone who's been through the scaling process, who knows the pitfalls, who can help you avoid the mistakes I made. Why would you do that? Catherine smiled. Because someone did it for me. Because I was also told I'd never make it, that I didn't have the right background or the right credentials. And because I see in you something I try to see in myself every day, the courage to build something true instead of something that just looks successful. I accepted her offer. Over the next 6 months, Catherine became not just a mentor, but a friend. She taught me about negotiation, about hiring, about the delicate balance between growth and sustainability. She introduced me to other founders, other women who'd built companies on their own terms. But most importantly, she taught me that success wasn't about proving my family wrong. It was about proving myself right. LocalLink hit 2 million users, then 3 million. Revenue doubled, then tripled. I hired my first full-time employee, then 5 more, then 10. We stayed lean, stayed focused, stayed true to the mission of connecting communities. Media outlets kept calling. More articles were written, more interviews conducted. In each one, I told my story, not to shame my family, but simply because it was true, because hiding it felt like admitting they'd been right to doubt me. The tech community embraced me. I spoke at conferences about bootstrapping, about sustainable growth, about building businesses that served users instead of shareholders. I became, to my complete surprise, someone people looked up to. And through it all, my family remained silent. No calls, no texts, no attempts to reach out. It was as if by succeeding, I'd somehow embarrassed them more than I had by failing, until Marcus's company went under. I found out through LinkedIn. Peterson and Associates, the firm where Marcus had worked, where he'd been promoted to partner, where he'd built his entire career on the foundation of my stolen work, collapse. Fraud, the headline said. Creative accounting, promises made to investors that couldn't be kept. Marcus's name was in the articles, not as the main perpetrator. He'd been too junior for that. But as someone who'd known, who'd participated, who'd turned a blind eye to increasingly questionable practices because the money was too good to question. He lost his job. Then, his penthouse. Then, from what I heard through the family grapevine, I still monitored from a distance his wife. I felt no joy at this news, but I felt no sadness either. Just a strange, empty neutrality, like watching a stranger's tragedy unfold. Mom called me for the first time in 8 months. "Sarah, please, your brother needs help. He's struggling. He made some mistakes, but he's family. He's your brother." "And I'm your daughter," I said quietly. But that didn't matter when he was the one succeeding and I was the one suffering. "That's not fair. We didn't know." "You didn't want to know, Mom. That's different. You chose to believe Marcus because it was easier. Because I was always the difficult one, the one who asked uncomfortable questions, the one who refused to just smile and accept whatever story made everyone else comfortable." "Sarah, please. I'm not going to help Marcus, Mom. Not financially, not professionally, not at all. Because he wouldn't have helped me. Because when I was working 3 jobs and living in a studio with a leaky roof, when I was just a delivery girl, he mocked me in front of his friends and family. He made sure everyone knew how much better he was than me, how much smarter, how much more successful. He's sorry. He wants to apologize. Then he can call me himself and apologize. He has my number." Marcus never called, but Dad did 2 weeks later. "Your mother's worried about you," he said without preamble. "She thinks you've become cold." "I've become honest, Dad. There's a difference. Sarah, I know we made mistakes. I know we should have believed you about the research, about what Marcus did." This acknowledgement, so long in coming, should have felt like victory. It felt like dust. "Do you believe me now?" I asked. "Or do you just believe in my success?" He was quiet for a long time. "That's not a fair question. It's the only question that matters. Marcus is your brother. Whatever he did, whatever happened between you, he's still family. And family forgives." "No, Dad. Family supports. Family believes. Family protects. Forgiveness is something that comes after, if the person who hurt you actually acknowledges what they did and tries to make amends. Marcus has done neither. He's only sorry because he's no longer the successful one. He's only interested in reconciliation because he needs something from me. You're successful now, Sarah. You've proven yourself. You've proven us all wrong. Isn't that enough? Can't you be the bigger person?" "I am being the bigger person," I said. "I'm not suing Marcus for intellectual property theft. I'm not publicly releasing the evidence of what he did. I'm just moving on, building my life without him in it. That's not cruelty, Dad. That's just healthy boundaries." He sighed. "Your mother misses you. We both do." "You always knew where I was," I said softly. "You just didn't think I was worth visiting, unless I could prove I was successful first." I hung up before he could respond, before the tears I'd been holding back could fall. The truth was, I did miss them. I missed the idea of family, of belonging, of people who celebrated your victories and mourned your losses. But I learned a hard lesson over the past decade. It's better to be alone than to be with people who only love you when you're useful, who only respect you when you're successful, who only believe you when believing costs them nothing. LocalLink continued to grow. We hit 5 million users. We expanded internationally. We stayed independent, stayed true to our mission, stayed focused on sustainable growth. And I built a new family, my employees, who became my friends, Catherine and the other founders in her network, the users who sent me messages about how LocalLink had helped them start businesses, find community, build connections in an increasingly disconnected world. This family, the one I chose, celebrated my victories without needing me to prove my worth. They supported me through challenges without requiring me to be perfect. They believed in me because they knew me, not because I'd finally accumulated enough success to deserve belief. 1 year after the TechCrunch article, I received an award, Tech Founder of the Year, from a major industry publication. The ceremony was in San Francisco, a black tie affair with hundreds of attendees. Catherine came as my guest. So did my lead developer, a brilliant woman named Priya, who'd taken a chance on my weird little startup when she could have worked anywhere. So did 5 of my users, people whose lives LocalLink had genuinely changed, who'd asked if they could come to support me. My family was not invited. I didn't tell them about the award, didn't send them pictures, didn't call to share the news. But someone else did. A cousin who followed me on social media, who saw the photos, who apparently couldn't resist sharing with the family that I'd won something significant. Mom texted me a week later. I saw you won an award. Congratulations. We're very proud of you. I stared at the message for a long time, typed and deleted responses. Settled finally on, thank you. She responded immediately. We'd love to see you, to celebrate, to be part of your life again. Why now? I typed back. Why not 5 years ago? Why not 10? Because we're your family, Sarah. Because we love you. You love who I've become, I wrote. You love that I'm successful now, that I've won awards, that I've proven myself. But you didn't love me when I was struggling. You didn't believe in me when I needed you to. That kind of love is conditional, Mom. And I've spent the last decade learning that I deserve better. So you're just going to shut us out? Forever? I thought about that question for 3 days before responding. I'm not shutting you out, I finally wrote. I'm just not letting you back in until you can acknowledge what happened. Not just apologize for making mistakes or not understanding. I need you to say it. Marcus stole my work. You believed his lies. You called me a failure when I was actually surviving something that should have destroyed me. You mocked me for being uneducated when I was educating myself in ways you couldn't see. You chose comfort over truth, and I paid the price. She didn't respond for a week. When she did, the message was short. I need to talk to your father. Can we call you this weekend? I agreed to the call. That Saturday, I sat in my new apartment. No longer a studio, now a beautiful 2-bedroom with a view of the park, with my phone on speaker, waiting. When they called, both of them were on the line. I could hear the nervousness in Mom's voice, the discomfort in Dad's throat clearing. Sarah, Mom began, we've been talking about what you said, about what happened with Marcus. And you were right, Dad's voice, rough with emotion, about all of it. We chose to believe Marcus because it was easier, because you were always so independent, so strong, and he needed more support. Or that's what we told ourselves. We failed you, Mom said, and I could hear tears in her voice. As parents, as family, we failed you completely. And I don't know if you can ever forgive us, but I need you to know that we see it now. We see what we did. I closed my eyes, feeling something tight in my chest begin to loosen. What changed? I asked. Why do you see it now? Honestly, Dad said, Marcus told us. After he lost everything, after his life fell apart, he broke down, told us the whole truth about the research, about lying, about how he'd spent years trying to justify it to himself. He said watching you succeed, despite everything he'd done, it destroyed him more than losing his job ever could. He's in therapy now, Mom added quickly. Real therapy, dealing with his issues, his guilt. He wanted us to tell you that he's sorry, that he knows an apology isn't enough, could never be enough. But he's sorry. I sat with that information, turning it over in my mind. Marcus in therapy. Marcus admitting the truth. Marcus being destroyed not by external consequences, but by internal guilt. It felt like justice, but not the kind I'd imagined. Not triumphant or satisfying, just sad. Just the natural consequence of lies finally becoming too heavy to carry. I appreciate you telling me, I said finally, and I appreciate the acknowledgement. But I need you to understand something. This doesn't fix the past. It doesn't erase the years I spent thinking I was crazy, thinking I'd imagined the whole thing, thinking maybe everyone was right, and I really was just a failure making excuses. We know, Daddy said, we know it doesn't fix anything, but we're hoping maybe it can be a start, a starting point for rebuilding. Maybe, I said, but it has to be a slow rebuild, with boundaries, with honesty. I can't have you in my life if you're only there because I'm successful now. I need to know you'd support me if Local Link failed tomorrow, if I lost everything and had to start over. We would, Mom said fiercely. Sarah, I swear to you we would. We see you now, really see you. Not your success, not your awards, you, our daughter. The one who survived something that would have broken most people and came out stronger. We talked for 2 hours. It wasn't a complete reconciliation. Too much had been broken for that. but it was a beginning. A tentative, fragile beginning. I agreed to dinner the following month. Just them, no Marcus, no extended family. A chance to sit together.